Fanbase is the first everything app. I want to be Bloomberg rich because I always wanted to own my content. I wanted to own my copyrights.
Everything's black.
Right.
Everything. I'm talking the money got black people.
Yeah. White supremacy is on its last leg. I can build anything you can build. You can't build black people.
So they think the Democrats is going to save them.
People say when you're investing in a tech startup, you are investing in the founder as much as you are investing in the company. Long-term gambling. Yeah. There's 48 million black people in the United States of America. All I need is 28,000.
I heard money don't grow on trees, but I still believe I can achieve. Cause cash rules everything around me, around me, around me, around me. Money don't grow on trees, but I still believe that I can achieve. Cause cash rules everything around me, around me.
Hey, good people. This is Jerome D. Love, CEO and founder of the Texas Black Expo and founder and host of the Black Money Tree Movement and the Black Money Tree Podcast. At the Black Money Tree, we're trying to help you to build wealth so that you can build your community. And today, I believe we have a game changer here, a brother that's doing some amazing things. And it's really not about himself. He's trying to build the community, trying to build a culture. So on this Money Tree on the Move, we're in Atlanta, Georgia at the Fanbase headquarters to interview the one, the only, Isaac Hayes III, CEO and founder of Fanbase. Isaac, welcome to the Black Money Tree Podcast.
Man, I love that intro, man. Thank you, man.
Thank you
for having me.
For having us, man. You have a beautiful studio, office here. You're doing some amazing things.
Thank you very much.
So I'm going to start with the name, Isaac Hayes.
Yeah.
I think about LeBron James and now his son, who's in the NBA. Certainly that name opened a lot of doors for him.
Yeah.
But that name also brings with him a lot of expectations, a lot of extra pressure, a lot of scrutiny. So I want to know, has having the name Isaac Hayes helped or hurt you more in your journey to where you are today?
In the beginning, it hurt.
Really?
Because people make the assumption that you're good. You know, I think the same thing with Brian is like, you could fail miserably in life and your father's LeBron James, so you'll have food on the table. You'll be fine. Same thing with my dad being Isaac Hayes. In my instance, really wasn't even the case. It wasn't the case. My dad filed for bankruptcy a year before I was born. So in the beginning, people made the assumption that, you know, you're just playing songwriter producer. It's not really real. So even to the point that I changed my name as a producer. So I used to produce under the name Ike Dirty. Yeah. So people would not judge it saying, okay, it's Isaac Hayes and see that or whatever. I wanted to build my own legacy as a songwriter producer without using my dad's name.
So the hurt part was the fact that there were more expectations from it, or people didn't take you seriously.
But well, people just think that, yeah, they don't take you seriously, or they're like, you know, it's just a lot more difficult because everybody else is coming from their first generation successes.
Yeah.
They are the ones that break through. And my dad broke through a generation before. So when I think about that, you know, it's like, oh, well, I'm not gonna, you know, why do I need to let you get on this album? You're fine. It's like, you know, opportunities are few and far between. What I learned as I moved through the industry is that my dad's name and reputation hold a lot of weight and respect. So now as the older I'm get, it actually helps the more higher you go up the ladder because it opens doors.
Yeah.
Because people have that level of understanding, oh, your father was Isaac Hayes. It works on that side. So in the beginning, it hurts. The higher you get up, it actually works in your favor.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me, your dad, iconic producer, musician, businessman. I want to ask two questions. What are some of the lessons that he taught you about business that you hold dear? And then I'm going to ask, what are some lessons you've learned from him? Meaning, he may not have actually told you this or taught it, but you kind of observed it, either positive or negative. I'm not going to do this because he did it, or I'm always going to do this. So first, what's the one lesson you think he actually taught you that's helped you along your journey?
It's a lesson that he taught me, but I also observed it. And I've been speaking a lot about this in a very candid manner. It's like generational trauma. So my dad lost the rights to a lot of his music the year before I was born. So you got to think about everybody that sampled Isaac Hayes in the 90s, he never saw any of that money. So all the Jay-Z's, the Dr. Dre's, the Snoop Dogg's. And so for me, his rights were stolen from him in a very cruel and deceptive manner. So for me, coming up through the music industry, in the music business, you do things like publishing deals. You sign a publishing deal. I never did a publishing deal because I always wanted to own my content. I wanted to own my copyrights. So for my life, anything that I've ever built, I've always built it with the notion of how can someone not steal this from me, right? So even in building Fanbase, I trademarked the name before I even built the company. When I launched the company, I created 2 classes of stock, right? So I created Class A and Class B shares. Class B common stock, which people can invest in, but the voting shares are all owned by me. So there's no board. So because when you really deep dive into tech companies, you see a lot of times founders, they have great intention and great aspiration, but then there are people that are on their board or people that are part of the company that have a different motive, that they just want to exit way before you do, or they fire you from the company and you have no control of power. That even happened to Steve Jobs, one of the greatest inventors and visionaries of our time, but not, at one point Apple fired him. And so learning from that lesson, my dad, like, look, I'm always going to have ownership, and we need to have ownership of our IP. When it comes to things that I observed about him, one of the things, like, I think my dad's his demeanor, his personality, the way he treated people. I've never met anybody that didn't have a kind word to say about my dad. Like, I saw your dad in the airport. He was just chilling. He just came up to me and said, hey, or whatever. I said hi, and I could take a picture. And so it really sets an example of the way that I speak to people. I still am my father was always a yes, sir, yes, ma'am type of person, no matter who the person was. I don't care if we at the grocery store, at a restaurant. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. I'm that type of individual. And so those things I picked up from him as well.
Now, go back to the generational trauma.
Yeah.
Is that a good thing or is it a bad thing?
It's both.
Okay.
I'm gonna tell you why. So if my dad would have kept his money, we would have never came to Atlanta. My dad left Memphis and moved to LA. And then because of the bankruptcy and things like that, we had to move and downsize. But if he would have kept his money, I would have grown up in Los Angeles, California. And I don't think people understand how the effect that a city like Atlanta has on you being a Black person. It's the only place in America that I know where you literally do not feel like a minority when you live here. I've never felt like a minority a day in my life. I don't know what that feels like, because I've always seen Black people at every level. I don't care if it's government, business, religious, entertainment, at the highest levels of success. So I see myself no differently than I see any other race of person. And so by living here, it gives you this kind of this confidence that I don't think people understand. Like, I always say that anywhere else you grew up in America, you understand that white supremacy runs everything else, and you got to figure out your way to fight through it. In Atlanta, I don't think there's any coincidence that two of the most powerful men in the movie industry are Tyler Perry and Will Packer, and they're here. I don't think that Martin Luther King, I don't think that LA and Babyface, I don't think that all these people that come out of this city that grow and build businesses and become multimillionaires, it's the type of energy the collective city has. And so I think it helped the fact that my father lost his money, because it also taught me about grinding, like hard work. You know what I'm saying? I had jobs all my life. I always worked. I worked at the public library through high school, and then I worked at a day job at a warehouse until I decided I want to do music. And so I love that it built that character of me of like, I got to go get it myself.
That brings up 2 thoughts. One a comment I'll make, and then I have a question. Mm-hmm. I did a mission trip to Kenya. Went there. Everything's Black.
Right.
Everything. I'm talking the money got Black people.
Yeah.
The billboards got Black people.
Yeah.
The commercials. I mean, it's kind of like, where does racism exist in a nation that's all Black?
Black, right.
And then what you kind of realize is still classes.
Yes.
So if you're from Kibera, which is the slums, they're the slum. I can't remember the term that they use, but it's kind of like those are the slum people. So it's very classes.
Right.
So I never thought about that. I never thought about Atlanta being a place similar to that, because it's still in America.
Yo, like when so Charlemagne, the God, does a podcast festival down here every year. And I say, hey man, you like? He's like, man, I love coming to Atlanta. He goes, every time I get off the plane, I feel like I'm in Africa. He's no lie. And I
Yeah.
think, it's the only place, like I said, I feel like there's a level of respect. Like in Atlanta, you never know who you're talking to. You can't assume that someone black is not someone that's a multimillionaire, a billionaire, successful businessman. You never know. And I think even white culture has to kind of understand that as well. So that's the way it's this balance of political power and wealth. And we move around in a way that's, different. Again, like with Tyler Perry Studios is 350 acres, and he bought it for $35 million from a mayor. So the mayor of Atlanta sold him the land to build the studio. They would have never given him the mayor of New York City or LA is not selling Tyler Perry 350 acres. You're telling me you want to build a movie studio bigger than all 3 movie studios combined?
Yeah.
And it would have cost too much money. It would have cost like $800 million in LA and about
Yeah.
$1.3 billion in New York City. But $35 million for 350 acres, and you have to go through the mayor to do so. It's like, yeah, done deal. Let's do it. That kind of power, you can't. I think it's the reason. I don't think Fanbase would have existed. I would have been able to do this in any other city.
Really?
No,
Yeah.
not at all.
So tell me this, do you think the racism that exists and the systematic racism that most blacks would say hold people back,
hmm
is that, how do I say, maybe is it just a construct of our mind? Because it almost sounds like you're saying in Atlanta you can be successful because you think you can be successful because you see so much success.
Oh.
Outside of Atlanta,
Yeah.
Is what's stopping us our mindset,
No.
or is it okay?
It's also literally the political power to do so. So think about this. The airport in Atlanta, from a concession standpoint, makes $6 billion a year in revenue. From a hamburger to a stick of gum. By law, 33% of all that revenue has to go to black businesses. So $2 billion a year is going in the pockets of black people, just in the city of Atlanta, by law. The mayor made it so. So in cities where you're not crafting laws, like Maynard Jackson, the first black mayor of Atlanta, he created the joint venture system. So, and it's a system that the Department of Transportation adopted, which is, if you're going to build the airport, then 25% of the contracts have to go to black people, or you can't build the airport. Whereas H.J. Russell Company, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, I think it's $1.6 billion stadium. H.J. Russell Company got 25% of that contract to build that stadium. So it's not about also how you see yourself successful. It's also what laws are in place that allow you to operate without, those barriers, because minority participation contracts in Atlanta go anywhere from 33 to 40%. Everywhere else in the United States, it's like half of 1%.
Wow.
So think about that. So
Yeah.
so there's a Shake. Are you familiar with Shake Shack?
Yeah.
Very popular franchise.
Yeah.
There's one in Atlanta, in the airport. But it's owned by a black person, because if you want to build a Shake Shack, go find a black owner and you can have a Shake Shack.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So the benefit of what law does in creating the opportunity for black people in Atlanta also creates the individual that you see, the success story that you see, but it's also the politics.
So with that said, what you made me think about, and I would say it's probably a good comp to Atlanta. You tell me if I'm wrong.
Mhm.
Washington, D.C., Marion Barry.
Yeah.
I read his book, Mayor for Life.
hmm
And my mind was just totally blown, and I'd say had to repent, because all I knew was the crack
Right.
and the In Living Color spooks.
Yeah.
And when that happened, I was in high school, 14, 15 years old. And at that point in time in my life, I believed whatever the media showed me. And I didn't understand that the media was controlled by someone that had an agenda.
Absolutely.
And when I read his story and realized what he was doing for that city, I believe they said when he came into office, it was something like the minority contractors was 5%, but by the time he ended his term, it was like 45%. Kathy Hughes, Bob Johnson, so many billionaires, black billionaires, are directly tied to him and the policies that he advocated for.
100%.
How would you compare Atlanta to DC? And people call it Chocolate City.
Yeah, I think that both of those cities, those sister cities, share that type of legacy. I think Atlanta, I think we've been able to hold on to it longer.
Yeah.
So DC's had a Marion Barry, and they've had other black leadership. but Atlanta's had a black mayor since 1973. So we're talking 50 plus years of black leadership that are in charge of one of the busiest airports in the world, the biggest cities, one of the biggest convention cities in America. So I think it has such a profound effect on the way that we do business. But I mean, you got to understand, Prince George's County, that's like I think the second highest concentration of millionaires in the world.
Yeah.
I think Atlanta has the highest concentration of black millionaires in the world, and I think PG County in that area is number 2. So the money is where the but if you see that, if you do the forensic research, you can tie it to politics. You can tie that to Marion Barry. You can tie that to Maynard Jackson. Say, oh, okay, the politics have to match the way that we make money.
Yeah. So with that said, we got an election coming up.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times when you're on the bottom, and African Americans have been on the bottom from an economic perspective for a while.
Yeah.
And when you're on the bottom, you can't help yourself. You're looking for other people to help you. You kind of develop this kind of savior complex. And many think the Democratic Party, I'm going to say Democrat because most blacks identify as
Democrat.
So they think the Democrats is going to save them.
Yeah.
Or Kamala Harris or whatnot. Do you think that's a healthy way of thinking, a healthy perspective, or not so much?
No, I don't think that's healthy, because I think my journey in understanding government and politics started probably right when Obama got. When you're younger, you're not really, you vote, but you're not really thinking about when you start building businesses and how these things affect your police force, the safety of whatever you're doing. And so most of the things that I think black people are concerned about are done on a local level that affect their lives a lot more. And so local elections matter. So sometimes I think they leapfrog over, local government, the state government, to the federal government, and say that Kamala is the one that can help get taxes down in their city, where your city can help you get taxes down, or create opportunity zones for you to start businesses and stuff like that. And so I don't believe that's a healthy way. What I do understand is that I think I have the privilege of living in Atlanta, and it's a very privileged position, because I understand why black people never feel like the Democratic Party does anything for them. I hear that all the time. Democrats don't do anything for the black community. And the only thing that I can ever say is I have a positive perspective of the Democratic Party, because Maynard Jackson was a Democrat, and Andrew Young, and you know what I'm saying? So all these people that were in Atlanta are black people, where some people say the Democratic Party is a bunch of white people that need black people's vote. And in Atlanta, it's a bunch of black people that need black people's vote, and then we turn around and do those things for one another. And that's a very unique perspective. So all the times I think focusing on local government, it will not, will curb your thought process and thinking that the president is going to do anything, because the president can only do so much, and then they need permission from the Senate.
Yeah.
So then you need the House and the Senate to come in and Congress to do those things, and then you need state and all that kind of stuff. So I think if we focus more on local and state elections, which a lot of times I think there's so much power in that people don't know. I think places like Houston have been able to kind of do that, but nobody really has that recipe as right as ATL.
Yeah. So what's really at stake for the black community, black businesses, the business community in general in this election, from your perspective?
Oh, I think it's bigger than black business.
Yeah.
I think I'm just the kind of person that believes that white supremacy is on its last leg. And if America's really supposed to live up to the ideals that were written, on these pieces of paper that we have amended, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, white supremacy is in direct contradiction to that.
Yeah.
If all men are created equal, then white supremacy is in direct contradiction to that, right?
Yeah.
How can you say one and then have the other?
Yeah.
So for America to live up to its ideals, white supremacy has to go. And I think that the people that represent Donald Trump or represent this party, the fringe group of that party, are fighting for white supremacy to stay.
Yeah.
And so what's at stake is a person that's going to implement a white supremacy agenda versus someone that's going to implement an inclusive agenda.
Yeah.
And I think that's more important than even, and that applies to business, that applies to public safety, that applies to, rights, everything. I've seen Trump supporters say that they need to strip rights away from black men and women, and only white Christian men should be able to vote. Like
Yeah.
those are the people that want Trump to win. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yo, you're voting. I'm voting for the Supreme Court and against Project 2025. It ain't got nothing to do with Donald Trump. I'm voting against the agenda of white supremacy and not necessarily the candidate in Donald Trump. I'm trying to stop. Some elections are offensive and some elections are defensive. I think this is a defensive election. There's a defensive election to stop white supremacy and then also be able to put somebody in there that is definitely going to at least not roll back the progress of black people.
Why would you say it's on its last leg? When you look at some of the changes in all this DEI and all this stuff is changing, it seems like they're advancing.
Well, the reason why they were able to advance was because of 2016. If there was no, like all those things, all the federal judges that Donald Trump got to appoint, right? All the laws that he was able to change, the 3 justices he got on the Supreme Court that were able to overturn Roe v. Wade, overturn DEI, right? That kind of stuff. That's why I say elections have consequences. And so the reason why I say it's on its last leg is because there's nothing stopping the browning or the tanning of America. It's just minorities are going to be the majority in this country at some point. Now, who has the power? That all depends on the politics. But white supremacy, there's, and this is something I also think that fuels this as well, is extinction anxiety, right? If you read about this, I've read about this for years. The year before Donald Trump became president, more white people died in America than were born for like 4 consecutive years because of obesity, opioids, and suicide. Then you factor in the pandemic, right, in 2020. So their numbers are going down. So the reason why there's such a strong push for family and no abortions and all these things like that is because they want to increase their numbers because, the Latino population is going up, the black population is going up, and their numbers are going down. And so that's the real issue.
I thought you were going to go, when you initially said that, I was thinking about the 60s and the civil rights marches and things of that nature. And many have said that part of the reason why they had to go kind of underground and give us certain rights was because of television. And the world was looking.
Yeah.
And now they had an image to uphold. I see that same thing happening with social media now.
Yeah.
And everybody has a platform, George Floyd and all that. So now they're kind of it's kind of forcing them to
go underground.
Yeah, to go underground.
Yeah.
And I think I read Barack Obama's book, Dreams of My Father. And one of the most profound things in that book that I remembered was he talked about when he grew up in Malaysia. I think it was Malaysia, wherever it was he grew up. He talked about how power was wielded. So it was clear, this is the upper class, this is the lower class. If you do something you're not supposed to do, they beat you in the streets to show we got the power and you don't. But in America, power is kind of hidden, clandestine. You go in these rooms, you meet with these people and you smile and you say, oh, wow, this was a great meeting. And then behind the scenes, we ain't doing,
Yeah, we're not.
So talk a little bit about that and what you've experienced, because I know you experience it in terms of what you're doing, because you're doing some things at a level that many black people ain't doing. The fundraising, venture capital is not an African-American dominated industry. Talk a little bit about that. Going to these rooms, talking to these folks that say the right things, look like they're trying to help you, but you really know, or you have a pretty good suspicion, they're not really trying to help you.
You're going to be surprised at my answer.
Okay.
I haven't done it.
Okay.
And I think the reason that I've been able to be successful again is because I was here and didn't have to do it. So I learned about the tech industry from a lot of brilliant black people. And what I learned from them is that they went in those rooms and they had those conversations before me and told me, I went in the room and they didn't give me the money.
Yeah.
So why am I about to spend, like I flew out to San Francisco on my own dime just to get told no.
Yeah.
I'm hearing that from them. But it reminds me of the music industry. So my time in the music industry, that's the only perspective that I have. Like I think when you go from one field to another field, I think the only perspective that you have is the information that you take from one industry to other. So how I look at technologies, I look at like the music business. So Fanbase is the artist, right? And then the VCs are the labels, right? And then the App Store charts are the Billboard charts. So if I'm independent, when you always hear those artists that go independent, they get to walk in and own their masters and get great publishing deals and get huge advances. that's the way that I thought about going to build a company. I was like, I'm not going to go to venture capital because all they're going to do is give me the worst deal. They're going to say, hey, here, like initially when we built the MVP prototype of Fanbase, it cost about $200,000, but I spent my own money to do that. If I would have gone to an angel investor and got $200,000, they probably would have took 20% of the company. So I already gave it. So I saved 20% equity by spending my own money right there. Then I had one meeting with a VC. Now I did have one meeting with a VC, and building Fanbase was something very intentional. It was less about building a social media platform and more about building an infrastructure that Black culture can be contained and monetized. And so knowing that Black culture is an economic engine of America, but especially on social media, is what powers it. I went to a VC and it was a woman, white woman, and she was like, why would you want to go against Mark Zuckerberg and Instagram and Facebook? They're giants. And I calmly said, and what I'm about to say is, I would say this to Mark Zuckerberg's face. I would say this to Elon Musk's face. I would say this to any white social media CEO. I said, I can build anything you can build. You can't build Black people. And that's it. You can't. Because there's always this there's this exploitive relationship between Black culture and white infrastructure. It exists all the time. Meaning, typically the sports team is owned by white people, but the players are Black. Typically the label is owned by a bunch of white people, and the musicians that power the industry are Black. Typically these tech startups are built by white companies, but what power the tech companies are Black kids, young Black culture. So my intention in building Fanbase was to say, we need to own the infrastructure. And when you look at that, it's very upsetting to think about this. I pulled up a list. I went on ChatGPT and pulled up a list. I said, give me a list of 100 Black inventions. And you would be surprised at some of the things that we've invented, but we don't own the infrastructure, right? So a Black man invented the golf tee, right? How come we don't own Titleist? A Black man invented ice cream. Where's our Briars? You see what I'm saying? A Black man actually invented the airplane, but they broke his airplane up before the Wright brothers.
Yeah.
But we don't own a Delta. So we have to start thinking that we have to build things that are solid, that can hold our, because Black culture is like air, it's like water. It's intangible. It's just part of, but it's the most valuable thing on earth. Yeah. It's the essence of what Black people are. But once you put it inside of a basketball team or a song or an app or a food product or a clothing brand or whatever it is, it has this life and magic that creates billions of dollars. And so that's why I say I never went in those rooms, because I already knew what the answer was going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So go back to that statement. That was a powerful statement. You can build anything they can build, but they can't build Black people.
Yeah.
That would suggest you can build what they can build, but you can also build Black people. Break that down.
What that means is that I'm Black.
Yeah.
So I understand our culture, and I'm not looking to exploit our culture.
Okay.
So when a platform like TikTok has someone famous like Charli D'Amelio or the young TikTokers, there's nothing wrong with what they do. There's nothing wrong that Charli D'Amelio sees a young Black girl do a trend dance and then she does it. That's what the app is designed to do. But at the top of the platform, they're looking at advertising. So if I'm going to sell advertising to Dunkin' Coffee or McDonald's, who would I rather have be the most successful or popular person on my platform? A white girl or a Black girl? I'm going to tell you why. The unfortunate thing in America is that things built by white people are perceived to be for all people. Things built by Black people are perceived to be for Black people.
Yeah.
So there hasn't been an interview that I've done that the writer has not tried to make the headline, or the writer hasn't written the headline, Isaac Hayes is building a social media app for Black creators. No, I'm not. I'm building a social media app. I just happen to be Black. So you minimize me by saying, oh, since I'm Black, it has to be for Black people. No, I just happen to be a Black founder. So when it comes to Black culture, I have a respect and a love for our culture that sees the monetization that changes things. Like I can give you a multitude of examples. Like, are you familiar with Twitch, the video game streaming platform? Okay. Do you know why Twitch exists? Twitch exists because of two people. And then people that watch this, Twitch exists because of Soulja Boy and Bow Wow. Yeah. And you might not even know that, because back in the early 2000s, or the late 2000 2008, 9, there's this thing called Justin TV. It was basically like a version of streaming. It's called Ustream and Justin TV. And the first people that really blew up on Justin TV were Soulja Boy and Bow Wow. And the platform got so popular that they decided to build a video game arm of that platform, and they called that Twitch. So if there was no Soulja Boy and no Bow Wow that lifted up this platform, there would be no Twitch. Do Soulja Boy and Bow Wow own Twitch? No. And that is the point that I'm saying, that before we jump and make the app hot, who owns it? Before we get on Tubi, because Tubi was Tubi with all the black movies, and now Tubi changed their whole branding. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah.
Tubi changed their whole branding, got a new logo, got a jingle. Now they got all white programming. And guess who owned Tubi the whole time? Fox. Fox Corporation owned Tubi the entire time. But we run over there like black movies, black movies, black movies. And so I always look to see who owns this before I get on it. And then when you look at it, if there's nobody in social media that owns a black social media startup. So we have to break that barrier.
Yeah. You know, you said so many things. I could go in a lot of different directions. Let me tell a quick story.
Mm-hmm.
When I used to do motivational speaking, I still do motivational speaking,
Mm-hmm.
but I spoke for a lot of colleges.
Mm-hmm.
And it would frustrate me. I would send out my brochure to 2,000, 3,000 colleges,
Mm-hmm.
and I do motivational speaking, leadership camps, all that type of stuff. And the first thing they would say, "You'd be great for Black History Month."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they didn't even see
Why would you have
the
to be
fact.
great, period?
That's a good question. Now, on the one hand, you have to say, okay, maybe that's a niche where I can make some money and I'll be the Black History Month speaker.
Right.
But on the other end, it's very frustrating because I can do leadership trainings. I can do,
Right.
it's so much more that I could train and teach.
Right.
Another story I'll share real quick, and then I'm going to ask you a question. Friend of mine, very successful businessman,
Mhm.
started a consulting firm, built it up, Forbes magazine, 180 something employees, black guy, had 3 partners, but he was the one who started it. He brought on the partners, so he was the majority shareholder. 2 of his partners was white. He told me specifically they would go into client meetings with white people, and he would say, "Hey, I need y'all to take the lead on this." And he would sit in the back like he wasn't the man that run everything, because he knew how they would respond to a white man versus a black man.
Right.
So, and maybe it's the way the stories are written based upon what you just said, because I've seen a lot of stuff where, and I believe you've even said you were the first black tech company to do raise $10 million or something along those lines.
The first black man to raise $10 million in Reg A crowdfunding. More importantly, though, I invented peer-to-peer in-app purchase subscription on mobile devices.
Yeah. So, but the reason I say that, it seems as though, and maybe it's just the headlines, you embrace and promote the blackness of Fanbase, but on the other end, that you're trying to get everybody, not just black people, white people, but I would assume that there's certain cultures that's gonna feel like this is an inferior product because there's a black man there, and you realize that there are people within your culture that's gonna say it's probably an inferior product because of the black man. So how do you navigate that?
I mean, well, one thing is that, so this is a true story. My initial idea for Fanbase was to even hire an all black development team. I had it. I went to a black developer, and they seemed mildly interested in my vision and kind of wrote it off like, I'm too busy to kind of deal with what you're doing. I don't, whatever. The next couple of people I went to, it would have been a gamble because these people didn't work together, but they were both black in development, but they hadn't worked together. And then my attorney introduced me to my CTO, who's Argentinian, who happened to live in Atlanta. And I saw the product that they had built, the products that they had done before. They built products for, KFC and, the CDC and all these other brands or whatever. And I was like, okay, I made the decision to go with them for 2 reasons. One, from a monetary reason, because the development team would be in Argentina and they would be here. So it would cost a third less. Fanbase would have cost me $600,000 to make here in the United States, not $200,000 if I would have done it.
Yeah.
It's stateside. And then I rock with who rock with me. It wasn't about the color of the person. So my intention is to be unapologetically Black, but not exclusive to Blackness. And I think sometimes we try to hide, like the same way that the guy that you were talking about, let the white people take the lead. That was my initial plan for Fanbase.
Okay.
Because when we built Fanbase in 2018, the 6 months from June to December, and launched it in 2019. I let that app sit for a whole year and didn't tell anybody that I built it at all. The only reason that I had to come out and be the founder is because we got into COVID. So I had to raise money, right? We were raising money a different way, and I didn't want to go through VCs, and I wanted to use equity crowdfunding. So when you are, and this is one thing that people say, when you're investing in a tech startup, you are investing in the founder as much as you are investing in the company. So then it was no choice but to be me. I think I explain and articulate Fanbase better than anybody could, because it's my vision. You know, it was something that existed that I thought needed to be built. And so I still think that there's an intention behind trying to minimize the fact that it's an app for every person, but it's just weird that I'm Black, so a lot of times people don't feel welcome. And basically that's what it's like to be like a minority.
Yeah.
So white people might come to Fanbase and say, like, we literally got a review the other day. We got a review on the Google Play Store. We got a 1-star review, right? You know what the 1-star review said? It's literally all Black people. Like that was why I got 1 star.
Yeah.
But imagine, you've never seen anybody go give Instagram review because it's literally all white people.
Yeah.
So that's my point, is the way that Black people are received in spaces and areas where they haven't, been respected or broken through. They're trying to like box out, because there's nobody in this space. I say this all the time, and I get a lot of, when people see Fanbase, say, oh man, like what you're saying, like, oh man, okay, it's a Black app. Okay, let me see, is it gonna crash?
Yeah.
Is it not gonna work? And I'm like, no, I always say nothing speaks better. I can't even speak better for Fanbase than Fanbase itself. I'll let the app speak for itself. You see it. And the biggest compliment that you can give us is say, well, it's not like Instagram, or it's not as good as Instagram, it's not as good as TikTok. Yeah, but those companies are $300 billion companies. I've raised about $12 million, right?
Yeah.
There was a tech startup that was funded by Andreessen Horowitz that raised $35 million in their first bag. I mean, the first amount of money they got to build their platform, they got $35 million. They spent that money in 18 months. Do you know what I would do with $35 million?
Yeah.
And they were Asian. And when two tech magazines wrote about them, one of them wrote about Fanbase and said, one of them wrote about their company. It was called Fanhouse, which was founded after Fanbase and trying to be like Fanbase. So they're trying to build the same type of company. They were like, hey, Fanhouse is building a place for creators to monetize. They're Asian. My headline said, Isaac Hayes III is building a platform for Black creators. Yeah. Why didn't they say Fanhouse is building a platform for Asian creators?
Yeah.
Again, the intention to minimize what we're doing is there, but I know that nothing is going to stop Black culture from being the most dominant force in all industries that exist.
I think one of the keys that you said, at least what I got as a businessman, if I went to Argentina, it's going to be 1/3 the cost.
100%.
Because at the end of the day, this is business.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell a lot of people. I mean, I'm CEO and founder of the Texas Black Expo. I'm a Black man. I have a Black business. But at the end of the day, the numbers got to work.
Yeah.
I had a company that had a decorating company. The decorator is the one that does the carpets and the tables and the drapes at the convention or whatever.
Right.
It's white dominated industry. Freeman, GES, several others. There was a Black company, and they came to me to do business. And you could tell it was almost like, for sure, we got this contract. It's Black Expo, we Black. And I ended up not doing business with them because the quality of work was so poor.
Yeah.
And what I told them is, I'm a Black man, you're a Black man, you're a Black business. I'm going to open the door because you're Black. I'm not going to give you the contract because you're Black. Right. I'm going to give you the contract because you provide a quality product or service that's affordable.
100%.
100%. Yeah. It's business.
Yeah.
And that's what I heard you say.
Yeah, because I think people have been critical of Fanbase for not having a Black development team, right? But I'm like, when I tried to do it, I couldn't get the help that I needed to build it, so I had to do what I had to do. But what I also hearken to people is, but we got a lot of black investors.
Mhm.
People will be upset that Fanbase doesn't have as many. We got black employees, but they might want more. But I was like, we got people that own part of a tech company. There's not the opportunity for the average person to own part of a tech startup pre-IPO is almost next to nothing. It was actually, it didn't exist before 2015 because Barack Obama and Joe Biden signed the Jobs Act in 2012. So that opened the door for non-accredited investors to be able to invest in tech startups. So when people are investing in Fanbase, that's only something that's been around for almost less than 10 years that people have been allowed to do this. And so it's extremely important that we take advantage of that. And so I care about ownership.
Yeah.
Again, like when these companies, I've said this a million times in interviews, Uber raised $500,000 in their seed round from rich people. So imagine a bunch of millionaires get together and fund Uber. All they needed was $500,000. Some of these investors who were multimillionaires, guess how much money they put in? $5,000.
Yeah.
When Uber went public 9 years later, the $5,000 was worth $24 million. How come you didn't know about that? How come the person working at the bar didn't know about that? Because we're not in the know. Those deals are happening in rooms that we're not allowed into. And it's not even black people that just don't have the money.
Yeah.
Because the accredited investor rule has been in place since 1933. So it wasn't about color, it was about class.
Yeah.
So now that everybody has the opportunity to own part of a tech startup, let's take advantage of that. Let's run this thing up and be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I heard you in an interview talk about Fanbase. Fanbase has over 700,000 users, subscribers. I mean, hopefully I ain't using that wrong.
Well, no, yeah, it's so Fanbase is to describe Fanbase. Fanbase is the first everything app.
Okay.
I think it's what people want, but so you can have followers, so you can download the app for free, use it for free, just like you would any social media platform. But you can also put content behind paywalls to have subscribers.
Yeah.
So that was a new notion that didn't really exist inside of a combined social media paywall type of platform. So we have 700,000 users. And then in that process, people are monetizing their content and they have the subscribers. Fanbase doesn't have subscribers. You have the subscribers.
Okay. So that's why I want to clarify.
Yeah.
That to me is the same thing, but I know technically I want to make sure I said it right. But 700,000 users, valuation over $100 million.
160 million.
160 million.
Yeah.
And you said you could sell it, but you didn't want to sell it. You have a bigger vision.
Yeah.
Tell me if it's not the money that's driving you, if you will, what is it that's driving Isaac Hayes?
It's the distribution of wealth. Like so ByteDance is TikTok's parent company.
Yeah.
They're valued at about $400 billion, right? So when I think of selling an app, because most people, if I wanted to sell Fanbase, I could sell Fanbase right now. But the people that have invested in Fanbase, and don't get me wrong, I'll first to tell you, anybody knows that getting 12 to 14% off an investment is a win. That means if you put $1 in a company and you get $1.14 back, you came up.
Yeah, yeah.
So Fanbase is 8x what it was worth when it started. So if you put $500 into Fanbase before, that's $4,000 now. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we already up, but what I want to do is leverage Black culture to create generational wealth. The generational wealth part is the part that's a problem for me. So it's not about, and again, I try to find ways to say this without sounding like I'm being, I don't know, funny or mean, but it's like, there are 10 Black billionaires in the United States of America, right? I want 100. And from what my eyes tell me, of the 10, and this is just me, this is my perspective, this is my hypothesis, whether these people agree, whether these billionaires will agree with this or not, but I feel like the last thing that 10 billionaires want, Black billionaires, is 10 more. I'm gonna tell you why. Because when you sit in that position, the leverage that you have between white culture and Black culture and the monetization potential of that, I always say Black people listen to 4 people. They listen to Robert F. Smith, Oprah Winfrey, Jay-Z, and Tyler Perry. Everybody else is just like, me and listening to you.
Yeah.
And that's power in that. So, but I might have a different perspective than Oprah or Tyler Perry or Jay-Z or something like that. So I might want to do something different than they do. So the only way that happens is if we create generational wealth and have more seats at the table that have billions of dollars to do things, to be disruptive. Because I want to be Bloomberg rich, right? Yeah. So Michael Bloomberg ran for president in 2020. You know how much money he spent on commercials?
100 million.
$1 billion and
A
lost.
billion. Wow.
I want to do that. I want to be
Yeah.
able to spend $1 billion on some commercials and not even think about it. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So when things like Flint happen, oh, they need a new water system. I got that.
Yeah.
We got that. We good. Oh, so-and-so's running for the seat, and what? Okay, that's gonna help the Senate do what? Okay, here's 20 million of that campaign. I'll make sure that Atlanta always has a black mayor. Like, those are the things. So if we're not creating super wealthy people that are influencing politics, like the Koch brothers and stuff like that, that's how the game is played. And so there's 10 that already exist, but we need 10 more. And so what drives me is to say, hey, Bob Johnson created the most millionaires, black millionaires ever at one time when he sold BET. I want to obliterate that. I want to one day be standing in a room with you and 15 other thousand black people when Fanbase goes public or exit. And once I do that, the person that put $250 has $500,000, $1.2 million. The person that put 50,000 has $150 million, $200 million. Now that changes things, because now we can do it again. What's the next thing we're about to build and invest in? You go build this business and we'll invest in that. You go build an EV company for electric vehicles and we'll invest in that. That's what motivates me, is disruption, and especially disruption by the way of ownership.
Yeah. Where do you think that drive comes from? That passion to
My dad.
your dad?
And understanding that when you see someone like him write these songs, and then knowing that there's that he had to file for bankruptcy, and then his writer shares were sold at auction without him knowing for $50,000. Imagine that. He could have bought his own rights back, but they had the auction without him there. So imagine it's only 2 people showed up to the auction, 2 white guys. We'll take it. How you think that was not by design?
Yeah.
And then those records going to make 30, 40, 50, 60 million dollars. And people that don't know my father, don't care, never met him, are going to the mailbox every quarter and pulling out $1 million checks and putting their kids through college and putting food on the table for their children. And my brothers and sisters never saw any of that money. That's why I fight so hard for his music rights and his publishing, because that changes the lives of people. That really, and so that gives me that drive and that passion. That's where that comes from for me.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, and this is something that I'm very much like you in terms of, that's my passion for Black Expo. My goal is to build, as I said in the beginning, help you to build wealth so that you can build your community. When you got money in your pocket, you can take care of those in your community.
Absolutely.
But unfortunately, others don't see it that way. When I say others, non-African Americans, typically Europeans.
Mm-hmm.
It was the most interesting. When we started Black Expo, and every year when the commercials start coming up 30 days out, we start getting calls, we start getting emails. This is racist. What if we had a white expo? How is this possible? Now that once we did Shannon Sharp and we went viral, we're starting to get it on the Black Money Tree. Anything that has that black, and anytime we do anything that's directly to help our community, other communities, white communities, I'm sure they don't represent the whole, but they seem to view it as an attack.
Right. And
tell me your thoughts on that. Where do you think that comes from?
Well, I mean, white supremacy is the white expo.
That's what I told one. In Houston, we had a rodeo. The rodeo's here.
Yeah.
I say, you do have the white expo. It's just called a rodeo.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's primarily white people there. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's racist or anything, but it's primarily white people.
So you have to be intentional about where you direct your dollars. Honestly, Fanbase was my second idea for a startup. I'm gonna build my original idea one day.
Okay.
And it has to do with directing wealth directly towards Black businesses.
Okay.
But you have to be intentional about that. So a lot of times people say like, oh, well, we're not a monolith. Well, damn it, we should be. You know what I'm saying? We should be just like focusing all of our attention on one thing that uplifts and scales something up, because what people don't realize is when we come together, that's where the disruption happens. And what I've seen business do is to want to do the integrated, inclusive, design or the business model, right? So I joke about this. The second half is a joke. The first half is real. Negro League Baseball was very, very popular, right? Why do you think they let Jackie Robinson integrate Major League Baseball?
Yeah.
Do you know why?
To get all the other blacks to go over, to
Because-
get the viewers there.
Because the Negro Leagues were getting more viewers than white baseball.
Yeah.
So
always economics.
So imagine if black people just own the teams. Because that's the thing. People want to be entertained. It doesn't matter who it is, but on the back end, who owns it? The ABA, which primarily had majority black athletes, they came up with the 3-point shot. They came up with the slam dunk. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And NBA's like, yo, we don't get this. These boys about to take over. Go buy them.
Yeah.
Go acquire them. So typically what they do, and I know that's going to happen with Fanbase. Fanbase is going to start to get big, and somebody's going to say, man, we got to buy them. I said this about L.A. Reid. I don't know if you ever heard me say, I said this about L.A. Reid. L.A. Reid started LaFace Records. And I say this with all respect to him, because he's the greatest music executive of all time, in my opinion. But they offered to buy LaFace after he did something that he had never done before, which is he signed a white artist named Pink, and she sold 4 million albums. And they were like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
It was good when it was just Tony Braxton and TLC and Outkast. Now you're gonna sign a white girl? So they offered him the job at Arista, bought his label, let him work there for a few years, and then fired him. If he would have never sold the label, all those artists that were signed that folded up into Arista, Usher, with 8701 and Confessions, he still would have had those successes. He still would have had Pink's second album that sold 15, 16 million albums. He still would have had the TLCs. He still would have been able to get Outkast, Speakerboxxx, and The Love Below. Nothing would have changed from that standpoint, except the fact that he didn't own the label anymore.
Yeah.
LaFace would have been the biggest record company in the world.
Yeah.
But it got acquired, and we're taught to sell our businesses. There's nothing wrong with that. But we're also taught to sell them because sometimes it's like the individual success. Yeah. I sold my company, I exited, and now I'm a black man, I've made it. But I'm like, yeah, but okay, that's great. But now we got to start that we make it.
Yeah.
We got to start having the we make it conversation where it's like, all right, because if there's an L.A. Reid or Tyler Perry, we will look up to them to help save us.
Yeah.
So we don't save ourselves, we'll get stuck.
So what do you think the biggest thing is that's missing that can help the black community and individuals in general think at a larger scale to change our community? What do you think is missing?
The success of the blueprint, like to see it. And they're not going to believe it. Like I said, nobody's going to believe in Fanbase until it's already successful.
Yeah.
Once they see that, then it'll change everything. You just have to see it first. Because we haven't, honestly, look, man, it's been Black Planet to 2000 to 2024. I know that there have been thousands and thousands of black people that have way more money than I do and are way smarter than I am, but no one's invented a social media platform and been successful. So my point is it's really, really hard. So we ain't never been here before. When I say we ain't never been here before, I say name it. Name a platform name a black founder social media app that has 700,000 users and is in Black Planet.
Yeah.
And that was in the year 2000. In 24 years, we haven't been able to do it. So
let's talk about capital fundraising.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you're at now. What's your goal? Where are you trying?
17 million is our goal in the Regulation A raise we're doing.
Okay. Now you're doing it through crowdfunding. For those that don't know, explain what crowdfunding is. Now you've already touched on it. I think it came into play in 2015.
Yeah, well, so it was signed into law in 2012, but it took a few years for the equity crowdfunding platforms to get up and running. So basically, the accredited investor rule said that you can't invest in an early stage company unless you are rich, which means you have either a net worth of $1 million minus your house or make $200,000 for 2 consecutive years, right? So that eliminates 99% of people. When the Jobs Act got signed into law and allowed equity crowdfunding, it wiped out the accredited investor rule so anybody could invest. So I took that path because now I don't have to go look for $50,000 checks, $100,000 check. I can go look for $300 check. So, you know what I'm saying? I say this even with this raise. Everybody that sees this, and like anybody that sees this, understand that 28,500 people investing $600 is $17 million. There's 48 million black people in the United States of America. All I need is 28,500 people to invest $600, and you got $17 million of a tech startup that you own, an Instagram or a TikTok that you own a part of. We should be running to do that. I should raise that money in days, not months.
Yeah.
That's what should happen. So that's really what equity crowdfunding is. It allows you to actually have ownership in companies before they go public. Because once everybody, the retail investing side is the long, and I'm gonna keep it 100 to your viewers. Like, investing is nothing but long-term gambling. That's all investing is, ladies and gentlemen. It's like when I play a lottery and I scratch the lottery off, I know if I won or lost right then. If I bet on a basketball game, I know if I won or lost at the end of the game. If I go to Vegas, I know if I won or lost at the end of whatever game I'm playing. You don't know if you won or lost in investing for 5, 6, 10, 15 years. It's just long-term gambling.
Yeah.
You just got to be able to sit there like the guys, like I just read this last night. It's a guy that owned 10% of Apple. He sold 10% of Apple, his 10% equity stake in Apple for $800 way back in the day. You know how much it's worth now? $350 billion.
Wow.
See, that was a long-term bet, and he got out.
Yeah.
If he would have held on to it, you heard Magic Johnson say, now you try to offer him stock.
Yeah. He didn't know what it was.
Long-term gambling.
Yeah.
So if you ain't got that long-term gamble, it's going to be that issue.
Now, let me ask you this. I hate to be a little cultural, but you know our people.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them see you up there. Oh, what's his angle? He's trying to hustle. What do you say to that person?
I say that I have the burden and the expectation to fail and be exactly what people think Black people do with opportunities like this, which is squander them on something selfish. Yeah. So the way that we run our business is so by the book. I understand that. And I understand that not only are Black people watching me, white people are watching me. So if there's any way to get me like, oh yeah, SEC can come get him because he did or whatever. So when you do a regulation crowdfunding, you do Reg A. So Reg CF is you can raise up to $5 million in a calendar year. And the most you can invest in one time is $150,000. When you do Reg A, you can raise up to $75 million in a calendar year, and there's no limit on the amount of money that you can put into the company. So accredited and non-accredited investors. But it's literally like going public. The amount of due diligence and paperwork that you have to do, it's like taking the company public. I talked to one of my friends that's in venture capital and funds companies, and the first thing she said to me is, you must have your shit together because to do a Reg A, you got to be on point. Not only was our Reg A approved by the SEC with a non-review the first time we filed it, which is unheard of. We got a non-objection from FINRA. So I already know people are watching me. So you're not gonna, this is the thing. I'll say this to anybody. Like, I despise people that aspire for greatness but entertain mediocrity. It drives me crazy. So I can't entertain mediocrity. I can't entertain, let me just steal this little bit or whatever. Or do, like, it's just things like, I don't want to name names, but I just see, it's so many times where people are trying to do great things and it's like, you did what? Like you risk the whole business on that. And I just can't, it drives me crazy. But not only that for myself, it's also for the investors, the people that have put their money and their faith. So it makes the job easy for me. I have the expectation and the responsibility of doing what I intend to do with the capital that I raise. So much to the point that I've never paid myself working at Fanbase. To this day, I've never paid myself a dime. Of any of the capital that's been raised, I've never paid myself a salary.
Yeah. So what will you do? What 17 million? What will that go into? What will you do with?
So with the 17 million, we have a 3-year plan. So about 5 million a year, right? So the problem that we were having in the Reg CF round, we were reaching our goals of $5 million, but it was limiting how fast we could scale the company. So then we would have to stop and raise. So you stop and raise. 17 million says we can build and catch the Instagrams and TikToks and then surpass them because we come. I'm saying even in 3 years, okay, $5 million a year for 3 years because we have all the ideas. Like, I mean, I got stories, but one of them I can say, a few of them I can say that really quickly is, again, in-app purchase technology. So the ability to take your phone out, right? So I don't know if you use Fanbase or you don't use Fanbase, but I'll say this. The ability to go inside of an app, right? Let me show you something. The ability to go inside an app and hit a button and do that, and then it pop up, and somebody can invest in you. I came up with that.
Yeah.
Now everybody does it. Now Instagram does it to the point that Apple told me and said, yeah, we had a change of heart of how we view subscriptions. So we're the innovators. So I already know they're like, yo, The idea is like we have gold, we have blue verification badges and gold verification badges on Fanbase. I had those since 2019. Go on Twitter right now, put in any company, go on X and type, and they have a gold verification badge.
Yeah.
So they already know, like, yo, if he gets money, he's unstoppable because he has the ideas. That's the thing. You got the ideas. The only thing that stops is the money. Oh, the money. Let me get to the money.
Yeah.
But let's get to the money together. Like, let's all own this. Let's all own a part of the company.
So when I booked you, my PR person, she actually sent me a message the other day, and it was an article talking about the raise. And she said, "Did you know about this?" I said, "Yeah, I knew he was trying to raise money." I said, "I think it's a great platform to expose it." And I said, "I actually invest as well." Then she started asking me questions. She started, "Well, okay, well, I might want to invest. Well, how did you evaluate?" And I told her, I said, it's a brother. He doing something ain't nobody else doing. I really don't understand it all, but I just want to support.
Right.
So, but most people may not have that mindset. I want you to break it down to someone that has $300, $1,000. What does that really buy you? If you get to that 10 million users and the $1 billion valuation, what does that translate to in terms of the value of my 1,000 that I put in, or 2,000 or whatever? Right. Talk about that.
Well, okay, so first I'll say that all investments are risks.
Yeah.
So when you buy shares in Fanbase, you're actually on the cap table. So you sit as an owner on the company, unlike any of these other tech startups. Fanbase share price rise $6.65 a share. So the minimum to invest is $399. So it gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at a value of $160 million. So let's take.
So $399 is 6 shares.
$399 is 60 shares.
Okay.
At $6.65.
60 shares. Okay.
60 shares of stock at $6.65 a share. Now, that means this is seed investing. So a lot of times people want to invest in something and get their return back immediately. This is not the type of investing that you do. Every company, every private company that ever existed that went public did the exact same thing that I'm doing right now. So Uber, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, all these were privately held companies that took capital, and then it took 5, 7, 10 years, and then they went public, and that's called a liquidity event. So at a liquidity event, that means you cash out. So that means, let's say Fanbase goes public on the stock market. You sell your shares that you've been having as long as you've had them for the elevated valuation, and then get out of the game. Or somebody comes and acquires you like Facebook did Instagram, and then everybody gets bought out, and then you leave the company that way. My goal is, Fanbase started out as a $20 million company. Then we went to a $50 million company, then an $85 million company, then a $160 million valuation. I believe Fanbase is a $100 billion company. I don't want to get out till we $100 billion, because I know if I get out $100 billion, the person that invested at $20 million has a 5,000x return. That means if you put $256 in Fanbase in 2020, you might see a $1 million check. That's how it works.
So what if, and I'm just breaking it down for the person that ain't ever invested, don't understand. If I put $399 in today, it's worth $160 million.
Yeah.
Up your users. A year and a half from now, it's worth, I don't know, $800 million. Let's just say we get to the billion. Can I cash out? How do I cash out?
No, so you can't cash out at that point. Well, companies do this, but
I guess the real question, individually, can I cash out, or do you have to make the determination to cash out?
You're along. So I tell people, you're along for the ride. You're saying, I'm betting on you, Isaac.
Okay.
Here's the money. That's why I say that's why I like equity crowdfunding, because to have somebody put down $10,000, that's a lot. But how many times, like I've said this before, black spending power is $1.8 trillion a year. A portion of that $1.8 trillion is spent on non-essentials and luxury items. Let's be real. So you might spend $400 to go out to dinner. But one weekend, let's just not do that. Let's put $400 in Fanbase and forget about it. You're going to chew that food up, eat it, and pee it and poop it out anyway. This month, I'm going to just put $400, or this, I'm not going to go to dinner this week. I'm going to put the $400 in Fanbase and forget about it. Like, it's gone. And then you be like, wait a minute. Wait, Fanbase just did what? That's the point that I try to explain to people, is that you grow as we go. So it's a long-term gamble. I can't guarantee what the return will be, but here's something that I can guarantee you. And this is why I talk about this all the time. The value of a tech startup is determined by the amount of users it has, right? So how do we increase the value of an asset that we own? We buy equity in it and then we move there. So it's like a scale. So the more users, the heavier the scale gets, the higher the valuation gets. We do this to Instagram, we do this to Facebook, but this side, people own it. You're just the user. You're just the weight that's lifting the scale. Imagine being the weight and the owner. So you step on the scale and your investment goes up, and it's legal. That means you can tell me if I was any of these multi-millionaire entertainers that had 50 million followers, 100, that I wouldn't go buy $100,000, $200,000 worth of Fanbase stock and then say, hey, I'm leaving Instagram, I'm going over here. Do you know what that would do? If someone say, hey, look, I put $200,000 on Fanbase. I'm gonna tell you why that's important. Ryan Reynolds had Mint Mobile. You remember, Mint Mobile?
Heard of it.
Yeah. So he just sold the company for $1.3 billion, right? And he became the face. So he brought people to Mint Mobile, got people to use Mint Mobile, but he was also owned part of the company. But he put 20 million in it. So he put 20 million in it to sell it for 1.3 billion. Why can't we do that with an app? Why can't Lil Baby, Kai Cenat, Cardi B, and Rihanna come and say, we are about to put $500,000 apiece in Fanbase and come over there, and the app will be worth $3 billion in like 2 weeks.
So let me ask you this. I've heard you say that several times.
Yeah.
I don't think it's coincidence, but seems like somebody should have reached out to you at some point. Mm-hmm. Are you allowed to talk a little bit about any of the folks that you talked to?
I won't talk about the partnerships that we have for two reasons. One, because you don't talk about what you own until you exit.
Okay.
Because people are haters.
Yeah.
I don't want Drake to be an investor in Fanbase and then all the Kendrick Lamar fans say I'm not using it.
Yeah, yeah.
So you got to be like, shh. But that's the point. We got to move in silence. We got to be like, yo, because you're like, oh, I didn't know you own part of that. Yeah, I owned that whole time. Because look, there was Jay-Z owned Ace of Spades the whole time. And I guarantee people didn't know till he sold for $150 million. Imagine Jay-Z came and said, I got the champagne. Buy it. No. He said, we off that Chris, we on that Ace of Spades. Influence over spokesmanship. Influence. He's like, Chris is dead. We on Ace of Spades. He owned the company the whole time. Now we got gold bottles everywhere. And he's sitting back like, boy, oh boy. That's why you don't say nothing.
Yeah.
Because people say, oh, it's my champagne. They're like, oh, it's cheap. It ain't good.
Yeah.
And complaining. Nah, man, no. You don't let people know you own it. Just ride the wave of that. So I think that's kind of the partnerships or the people that we have, I don't talk about it. But also, I think that if we're not taking it, part of that issue for me is that we have a problem enriching ourselves beyond ourselves. Like, that's Black problem. Meaning, I'm gonna tell you what it is, and I'll be candid. I've had people that I know that I have personal relationships with that have not invested in Fanbase. They have millions of dollars, but they've invested in white founder startups that have gone out of business that try to be Fanbase. Because they're saying, why am I gonna invest in Ike's company? Because if I invest in Ike's company, I might make 40 million, but Ike might make 40 billion. I'm not gonna do that. But I'll invest in a white company where the white man makes 40 billion and I make 40 million. I have no problem doing that. We have a problem enriching ourselves beyond ourselves. Once we get over that, we're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
But until then, because I said black wealth is looked at as a competition and not collaboration.
Yeah.
We compete one another to be there's only 10 Black billionaires. So we try to be, okay, we don't need 11 or 12 or 13. That was my point.
And that's a good segue. I was going to ask you about mentors, which I think is critically important. And I want to ask you about some of yours. But with that statement, I have a mentor that helped me in real estate. Pretty much in every area, I believe in mentors. When I wrote my first book, started doing public speaking, started building houses, I've had people that have guided me along the way. And I had a bumping of heads, if you will, with one of my mentors once, because he had lent me some money and I was paying him a return or whatever. Like, And then he had asked me for something. And then I said, well, hey, just don't worry about this money that I owe you, you know. And he was like, after I done help you build all of this, and I asked you for this, and you try to. And one of the things that he said to me, we kind of talked it out. I'm glad he was right at me, and
Yeah.
he put me in my place. And then I had to look, sorry, my bad, I'm sorry. Da, da, da. And one of the things he said is, you can't look at me just for what you can get out of me, but you got to look what you can sow into me, because the higher I go, the higher you go.
Yeah.
So with the scenario you said, the gentleman that may make, I forgot the numbers you gave. If you make 40, if you make 40 million, you make 40 billion.
Yeah.
Well, now you got 40 billion. You're a resource to him because you helped him to get the 40 billion.
Yeah.
So that's the way I think now. So
Yeah.
I believe that as a community, we got to think that way if we're going to get out from where we are. But who are some of your business mentors? Who are the folk that have advised you, kind of help you in the tech space, but just really in general?
Well, I'll say, I mean, I always shout out my tech senseis, right? So there's 3 here in Atlanta. Jewel Burks, Justin Dawkins, and Barry Gibbons. And they're the ones that initially taught me about tech. I didn't know anything about the tech space. So they taught me about, you know, VCs and cap tables and seed investing and all these things that I knew nothing about. And so they were the ones that gave me the initial education on tech, and they're still mentors to this day. Dawn Dixon was a woman that broke barriers in equity crowdfunding. She's the first Black woman to raise $1 million in equity crowdfunding. And Dawn taught me the game. She taught me, okay, this is how you raise capital in equity crowdfunding. And so, you know, between those 2 people, and then I definitely would say not so much a mentor, but a partner and ally is Ryan Wilson of The Gathering Spot. And I'm gonna tell you why. I became a member of The Gathering Spot. And by that's where I met Justin, Jewel, and Barry. So those relationships were worth the membership, because I got access to information that I would have never got in this community that was brought together. And so I've always been a supporter of The Gathering Spot, and I've always been a member of The Gathering Spot, because I just know how important that relationship is, and to be able to meet people, have access to people.
Now let's talk a little bit about business in general, specifically marketing, branding. Everywhere I go around here, I see F's glowing in the dark all over the place.
Lit up.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about the significance and importance of branding, because you've done a phenomenal job. Talk about branding and building your business, and where did you learn that?
I'm kind of like a jack of all trades, so I kind of know how to do a little bit of everything, which is a good thing in my opinion, because I understand when something is not right. So I'm more like, I call it I guess my role in the business would be called a visionary.
Yeah.
So the other people that work at Fanbase are called integrators, and I'm more so of a visionary. And so I picked up the branding side from like the music business and social media, and how to go viral, how to create those moments, how important logos are. Like when I was thinking about Fanbase, I wanted something that if you set it up, if you put it next to the TikTok logo or the Snapchat logo, it's like, would it stand out? Like I even remember when we designed it, I had them specifically put the Fanbase logo there, and I said, put the logo on all these other apps. And I want to see a Fanbase like feels like it belongs there, like that eye test, and it does. And people still talk about this to the day. Like there's like, oh, this F is like, I love that F. Like it's gangster, like the lightning bolt. And I was like, energize your fan base. Like that whole thing was, you know, because people see it on a hat, like, what is that?
Yeah.
See on the shirt, what is that? And that's how it works.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about you, just a business owner that wants to use Fanbase, or an individual. How do you monetize Fanbase? And let's talk about social media in general. How do you make your money, and what's the differentiator between Fanbase, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, any of those?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about it.
So all those companies are ad-based platforms, which means they get a bunch of users, they don't generate any revenue, and then they find a way to monetize through ads at some point. The problem with that is it limits the social media experience, the user experience, by how many people can see your content. Because once video got added to social media, everybody became a television network. So the fact that you have 17 million followers on Instagram, you have the viewing equivalent of Sunday Night Football, and they charge $800,000 for a commercial. There's no way that Instagram's going to let you reach 17 million people and somebody be able to hand you a check for $800,000 without them getting a piece.
Yeah.
So for that reason, they suppress your content. They smush it down that you're going to reach 1.7 million people and not 17 million people. So that's what differentiates Fanbase. Fanbase is a rev share platform that we don't suppress your content. I want you to have 300 million followers, because if 5% of those people are subscribed, that's 15 million people, and you charging a certain amount of money, a nominal fee, and we get 20% of that, and you take that around the globe, that's $1 trillion company. So it's about the rev share component. So
so let me stop you right. The rev share on the subscription. So the first example, you have a
ad model.
Ad 800 million. They can basically, you can't sell your advertisement on Fanbase the way you can on Instagram.
Because we don't run ads.
Okay. Got
because the reason being is because why would Instagram let you reach 2 million people when they're about to charge Target to reach 2 million people?
Yeah.
You got 2 million followers. Yay. Instagram said, we don't care. We're not letting you reach the people.
Yeah.
We about to charge Target $500,000 to reach these people.
Yeah.
What you think you just think you about to walk up here and just reach these people?
Yeah.
No. Because if that was the case, the Target would just come to you.
Yeah.
And say, run this, put this on your page. Here's the money.
Well, aren't they doing that now?
No. They're still not doing it. No.
But you see so many influencers with these ad deals and stuff like that. And what that made me just think when you said that, and I'm sorry to cut you off, I don't want to stop your thought.
That's okay.
Why would all these influencers and creators that's getting these deals, clearly the people that's paying them, the Walmarts, the whatever, they understand what Facebook and Instagram is doing. So why would they pay them versus Instagram? That's what just came.
Well, because organic marketing is really better than ads.
It's like an endorsement or a testimonial.
Or the influence. Remember, it's like influence over spokesmanship.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is that as the influencer, you can't build a business off that. You can't guarantee that you're going to get that money month over month. But if you create a subscription model, you can scale that and understand how much money you're getting month over month and build your business. And so for us, we don't look, again, we look for rev share, not advertising. And so that's the business. That's what separates Fanbase. You can have subscribers. So I'll say this. Think about this: 5,000 people subscribing to you for $2.50 a month. Just 5,000 people. It's $12,500 a month, $150,000 a year. That's more money than 97% of Americans make. I know influencers with 13 million followers that don't make $150,000 a year. But all you need is 5,000. That's why I call it Fanbase. Everybody has a fan base. You have a fan base. Your fan base is buried within your following. So if you got 1 million followers, you got 50,000 fans. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you got 100,000 followers, you got 5,000 people that really would pay for your content. The notion that you would do that is something that younger people understand more than older people. First time I built the app and told somebody, a woman in her 30s, that I was going to build an app with subscription, she said, I'm not subscribing to nobody.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that. Fast forward, I'm in the Apple store. I see this young employee. I said, who's your favorite artist? She named some indie band. I said, would you subscribe to them for $4.99 a month if they posted content that they didn't post anywhere else? She goes, fuck yeah, it's only $4.99, and walks off. I said, they get it. Yeah. We don't get it. So when you got Kai Cenat that's making, probably $800,000 a month off subscribers on Twitch, bruh, but think about that. You see Kai Cenat make $800,000 a month, and you about to go out here and try to sell your album. You couldn't get me to do that.
Yeah.
I'd be like, I need subscriptions.
Yeah.
If I'm Cardi B, if I'm Lil Baby, I'm like, if he can make that with that, I got 100 million followers. He only got 5.
Yeah.
What do you think I could do? I could be making $1 billion. Subscriptions are gonna change the world. I keep saying it. Like, it's gonna be $1 billion. It's gonna be $1 trillion industry, but they're gonna be billionaires made off subscriptions.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. I remember when they first started the boosting of the ads on Instagram, and I started boosting my ads, and it would tell me all these people I was reaching, and then my mind just say, this is a slippery slope. If I start paying for this, why would they ever show my ads to someone if I wasn't paying for it?
Right.
Like I said, I think business, and it just didn't make sense to me. But now the way you are articulating it certainly makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's how 97.5% of Facebook's revenue. That's including Instagram, Facebook, Messenger, and WhatsApp. Is advertising.
Yeah.
So without it, you know.
So that's pretty much it for me, man. This was an awesome conversation. I commend you for what you're doing. I'll turn it over to you for a minute if you want to kind of share with folk where they could go if they want to donate.
Yeah, not donate, invest.
I'm sorry, invest. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm a nonprofit owner, so I'm used to
donations, right? But I like to say it's investing. So if you want to invest in Fanbase, you can go to StartEngine.com. So my shirt, StartEngine.com/Fanbase to invest. The minimum to invest in Fanbase is $399. When you get there, if it says a number that's higher than $399, just put $399 in, and you can invest. And that's really what we want people to do: have equity, and then download the app and use it. Tell your people, you know, tell your friends, bring your tribe, bring your community, and let's scale this thing and continue to build it. That's my mission.
Well, Isaac, it's been a pleasure having you. I commend you in all the work you're doing.
Thank you.
And whatever we can support with the Black Money Tree, Texas Black Expo, we're here to help.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
My guy.
And thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Black Money Tree Podcast. Until next time.